In Gestalt, there is a helpful notion of foreground and background. When we focus on something particular, everything else tends to become out of focus, more background. Whether it's sight, sound, sensation, or thoughts. And so this is a recurrently useful way for us to attend to a client's experience and assist them to have more influence over directing their experience. The first of these is the experience of dissociation and association, disconnection and connection. I remember once watching a video on Ernie Rossi where he commented, if my memory serves me correct, on all hypnotic phenomena have dissociation and disconnection as a part or component of them. So that if someone is experiencing some age regression, for example, reliving a past memory, something that happened to them in the past, mild trauma or any event that may have happened, even unconsciously, and they're reliving the memory like it's real. So they had an argument with someone, they may have had a crash, they may have had an experience, an unpleasant experience. And if they're reliving it and it's real, like it's happening now, there's a disconnection from the now, a disassociation of the present in order to connect that past experience. And that was my interpretation of what he said on that video I watched. If someone's experiencing analgesia or anesthesia, hypnotically, there is a disconnection or a dissociation from the sensations or from the caring or the emotional suffering that could be connected to the sensations. From a physiological point of view, you could go for a walk and you could have a rock, for example, in your shoe, and you're absorbed in the activity and you dissociate from the pebble in the shoe, and when you get home you realize it's there. Or you could do some gardening and you get little grazes on your arms. You don't notice it when you're absorbed in the gardening, but later you notice it, you're aware of it, you're disconnected. Dissociation, we've seen sports, sometimes people get an injury and they play on without realizing it. So all hypnotic experiences could be or can be thought of dissociative and associative, disconnected and connected. So, for example, if someone says they're haunted by past memories, so they're haunted by a past memory every time they see someone. I worked with a client once and she said to me every time she saw her ex-husband, she'd been married for many years, she had these really troublesome feelings and negative emotions. Or someone could see an ex-partner on social media and it brings them butterflies and anxiety and nervousness. Or someone could see an ex-work colleague at a networking group and it brings up unwanted memories. Or even the thought of going to an interview or a presentation can bring up unpleasant memories, and the person has a connection or an association with that fear. Every time someone thinks about something like food, for example, the client, anytime they saw an advert on TV on food, or it crossed their mind or anything around that, they were already in the kitchen or the local takeaway. The thinking is very closely, almost inevitably connected with the doing. If there's too tight connection between one aspect and the other, then what we might want to do is help loosen or break that connection, loosen the rigidity. So for example, when someone thinks about delivering a presentation, going to an interview, or anything that might bring nerves, maybe a sporting event, and they start connecting to the fear, they're frightened. So when I was working in football as a performance coach, one of my performers were walking out this stadium, and there's a crowd, and it was a big game, a cup final, and he started saying, well, I feel frightened. So I utilised that and explored, and I reframed and said, I'm glad you are frightened, because that means you care. And can we make that transition to nervous excitement? So we can utilise that and channel that, and we can explore how they can utilise, like the presentation, we can utilise that and explore how the client wants to deliver a presentation, and she had a lot of experience, and she had a bad moment in one presentation, and she felt afraid of presenting. And every time she went to present, she had that memory and that association. So if there's a way to disconnect and not think about that and experience it in a different way, disconnect from that, then it goes a long way towards helping the person. When I was working with a woman once and she had an interview for a job, this woman had this interview for a job and she really wanted the job. And she felt nervous about going for the job. It meant a lot to her. It really meant a lot to her. And as I'm talking to her and helping her prepare for the interview and doing other techniques as well, it became apparent to me that she was really good at doing yoga. And I talked about her and yoga, and I said, tell me about yoga. What got you into it? How long you've been doing yoga for? And yoga, as you know, has many complex movements. I'm not a yoga expert, I do a little bit here and there, yet I got her to tell me a bit about yoga, and she became absorbed and connected to that experience. And by connecting the experience, she got into a more resourceful state. And as she told me about yoga, how she first started, she does the handstands and headstands, and I said, show me a few moves. And as she showed me a few moves and how talented she was, the goal was to transfer that to the interview, that state, making that transition. So to make that transition, to connect to a more resourceful state, knowing at one point in her life she couldn't do yoga. At one point in her life she was new to doing yoga, just like one point in life you didn't know how to walk, and you walked and you fell and you went again. And the same applies to tying a shoelace, the same applies to driving a car. At first it's a conscious incompetence, then we consciously competent, we become unconsciously incompetent, unconsciously competent. So for me, for her, I get the thought of her going for the interview and being in a more resourceful state, a happier state, so that instead of gripping on the thought of the presentation, instead of the fear, we can have the thought of the presentation, the interview, gripping on the emotion of happy. I had a friend of mine once who said he felt life became meaningless, and he felt he was drifting and felt lost and so on and so forth. He was going through a period in his life where he was sort of unsure about a lot of things, and I suggested to him, perhaps you want to do music again. He was very passionate about music. I said, why not start recording again, and perhaps playing a band again, and perhaps just playing for fun again, and rediscovering that and connected to that feeling again of passion and meaning, and maybe you can release a few tunes. I'm not implying it's going to be work for everybody, yet in saying that sometimes life expectation, the way we think life should go, we don't meet the expectation, we become disconnected from life and disassociated from any meaning. So by getting him to suggest to do music again, he could get some meaning in life again, and that could be connected to meaning, because he became disassociated. Now, I'm not advising anyone to do anything, or I wouldn't advise anyone. It's all based on treatment plan and formulation. I'm just giving you an example of how this guy, a friend of mine, became disconnected with, or was becoming disconnected with life in general, the meaning, the purpose. He wasn't where he thought he should be at the age he was, and nothing means anything anyway. We create meaning, and for me, I suggested that he did what he was passionate about, connect to some experience. And one of the techniques I use for people who are in situations where they become heavily connected to a problem, associated with a problem, I suggest to them to, how would you advise somebody else that you're not emotionally connected to if they had the same problem that you had? Say if someone's nervous to do an interview, if someone's nervous to do a presentation, if someone's nervous about a driving test, about a sporting event, then I say, how would you advise them, or how would you advise someone else? So they tell me what the problem is. They might say the problem is I'm nervous presenting, I'm nervous doing an interview, I'm nervous playing sport, and I say, how would you advise someone you're not emotionally connected to? And by doing that, it helps them to dissociate. So a woman I worked with at one time, she would go to a wedding, her daughter's wedding, and her ex-husband was going to be there, and I suggested she bring someone to the wedding with her to communicate to, because she felt anxiety at the prospect of seeing him, to dissociate, to talk to someone, to, like when you got bad food in the fridge, if you leave the food in the fridge, it contaminates the other food, you take the food out. And that's one thing you can do. You can play around with the way they represent the image, what they see, hear and feel, and you can have a go if you want to, if you're in a mildly unpleasant situation, and perhaps you like to close your eyes, and that's what you see, hear and feel, and just push the situation away, the colours, the sounds, turn the sounds down, push the image away and drain the colours to the size of a postage stamp, and let go of any feelings. Or perhaps you can see yourself like seeing yourself on a screen, double dissociated, so you see yourself seeing the image and fast forwards the image forward and backwards, and as you fast forwards it, drain the colours, turn the sounds down, let go of the feelings and turn up to balloon and float in the sky, and replace it with maybe perhaps the sound of your favourite music, a vacation that you really enjoyed, or being around people you enjoy being with, or something that you're really passionate about. So that's sort of a bit of an insight. If you want more information on some of those processes, do email me. It's only a very minimal insight because of time. Do email me if you want to, and they're not the only things I do. There's many things I do to help people based on this component. So in that way we can dissociate. Dissociation can lead to the possibility of some distance between two unwanted connections, and then the generation of a new connection. And as I mentioned, if someone has a problem, as part of that way they are wanting some help with being too disconnected, if they feel they're drifting, their lives become meaningless, then what we might want to do is, as I mentioned with my friend, get them to connect to an experience that has some importance to them, an emotion that's more useful to them, where there's joy, where there's interest, where there's passion. And there's disconnection from purpose, meaning, future, then in disconnection, disassociation, what will be missing in association. So we can say that about pretty much any experience at all. When we're experiencing something, there is so many other potential experiences we can attend to. We relegate things to the unconscious mind. So until I mention it, if I say you're back against the chair, your feet against the floor, you aren't associated to it, it's relegated to the unconscious mind. Notice the room around you. Notice the background. Notice any colours, any sounds, and we can only focus on so much consciously. Unconsciously, we store these memories, and we relegate this to the unconscious mind. Like when you're watching a film, and 2 hours goes by like a minute. Or you're absorbed in a sporting event, or you're playing sport, or you're listening to music. You become associated to the experience, connected to the experience, and really connected to it, and you disconnect to another experience. You could be watching a film and someone says something to you and you just, I believe this is what they say. Or music, or you're playing sport and you can see people watching you. I know when I played the highest level sport, there'd be people watching me in the crowd and I was disconnected through them. I didn't even notice them because I was so absorbed in the experience. No, great presenters say the same thing as well. They say the same thing as well too, that they're presenting and they don't notice anyone anywhere. So, as I mentioned, one aspect of any problem is the way we notice it, we associate to it. And by exploring it and shifting our attention, we can help the person we're working with to notice it, disconnect to it, and dissociate from it, and then notice and connect with a more positive experience, something more preferred, working towards a solution, like the one I mentioned going for the interview. She was frightened going for the interview, so I connected to a more positive experience that she had doing yoga and connected to that and got that to piggyback on the back of going in for the interview. Because the best chance of getting the interview, getting the job anyway, is being in a state that she identified as being calm and confident, and that was useful for her. So if you've got any questions, comments, or otherwise, feel free to email me, Jimmy Petruzzi, and that's info@excelwithnlp.com. That's Jimmy Petruzzi so you can email me at info@excelwithnlp.com, info@excelwithnlp.com. Thank you. Have a great day.